In 1968, 8 mice were placed inside a meticulously designed utopia. They had unlimited food, unlimited water, and absolute climate control. 5 years later, every single one of them was dead. The autopsy of this colony revealed a strange result. Not a single death was caused by anything a veterinarian could diagnose. There were no pathogens, no predators, and no starvation. The architect of this world was John Calhoun, an ethologist who had spent 2 decades researching a specific question: what happens to a society when nothing is hard anymore? To find the answer, he built Universe 25 inside a federal research lab in Maryland. It was a 9-foot square enclosure with stackable apartments and cages cleaned on a strict schedule by the National Institutes of Health. In an environment with 0 existential threats and absolute physical perfection, the population spontaneously erased itself. When Calhoun published his findings, the public latched onto a specific reading of the data. The widespread takeaway was that comfort kills, that an existence devoid of struggle naturally turns inward and destroys itself. Urbanists, politicians, and religious leaders pointed to Universe 25 as a direct warning about the decay of modern, dense human cities. The mice became a metaphor for the social consequences of the 20th century urban boom. But that popular interpretation missed the actual conclusion in Calhoun's paper. He wasn't trying to prove that abundance is inherently dangerous. To identify what killed Universe 25, we have to look past the material things the mice were given and focus on the social structures that vanished when the food never ran out. For the first 104 days, the colony thrived. The 8 original founders explored the habitat and settled into the walk-up apartments along the walls. The population doubled every 55 days. By day 315, over 600 animals crowded the ramps. In the wild, surplus mice find new ground. Inside Universe 25, there was nowhere to go. Younger generations were physically trapped within the territory. Calhoun observed the physical reality of crowding shift into a psychological drive called the behavioral sink. Even with food available everywhere, the mice stopped eating alone. The presence of others became wired into their feeding instinct. They would crowd aggressively around a few specific hoppers, while the rest of the enclosure sat untouched. The utopia's design remained perfect, but the psychological need for proximity turned absolute abundance into a state of artificial scarcity. As the population swelled, the biological jobs of the colony ran out. Alpha males, exhausted from patrolling overpopulated territories, stopped defending their families and abandoned their social roles. This created a demographic of surplus males with no purpose to fulfill. They gathered in the center of the enclosure, forming listless pools of bodies that would absorb attacks without fighting back. In contrast, a second group of males became hyper-violent. They ignored all social rituals and moved through the enclosure attacking others indiscriminately, refusing to be deterred even by dominant males. Stressed mothers were forced to defend nests alone while nursing. Under the weight of constant defense, many abandoned their pups or stopped recognizing their own offspring entirely. Their bodies were well fed, but the social fabric that gave each mouse a reason to participate in the species had evaporated. On day 560, the population peaked at 2,200 mice. The final generation to emerge was raised by mothers who opted out of social interaction entirely. Calhoun named them the beautiful ones. They never fought, mated, or socialized. They spent their lives eating, sleeping, and grooming themselves to maintain a perfect appearance. Their nervous systems developed in a world where every social role was already filled. Having no available place in the hierarchy, they simply stopped engaging with the species. These physically flawless specimens were the walking dead. Their arrival marked the point where the colony lost the ability to survive. Day 920 saw the last birth in Universe 25. From that point on, the colony aged in silence until the final mouse died of old age in 1973. Calhoun concluded that when the number of individuals exceeds the number of meaningful roles available, societal collapse follows. He wrote that the mice had died 2 deaths. The first was the death of the spirit, the loss of purpose, which happened years before the final death of the body. To Calhoun, the killer wasn't comfort. It was the disappearance of friction. The mice died because they ran out of reasons to be alive. Calhoun was not a doomer. He spent the rest of his career trying to engineer a variable that could prevent this collapse and save the utopia. He called his solution ideational generativity, the concept of extending the boundaries of our society into conceptual space. While the mice were limited by finite physical space and biological roles, humans can create infinite roles through ideas, art, and networks. Our survival in a dense modern world relies on our ability to invent new conceptual roles when the physical ones are filled or automated away. The lesson of Universe 25 is that paradise requires the continuous creation of purpose. The mice didn't have a choice in that, but we